The history of the colonies that stood between the New England colonies and the Chesapeake Bay colonies is an interesting blend of the two narratives. As was the case in the southern colonies, early efforts to colonize along the Hudson River were made by an emerging empire who had decided to enhance its territorial acquisitions and search for valuable resources in the New World. This region would also provide a new home for religious extremists, as New England had done. While the motives were a blend of the stories you've already heard, the players were unique, and their cultures and differences shaped the unique character of the Middle Colonies. The colonial history of the Middle Colonies begins with an emerging empire, the Dutch Netherlands, that had, like England, also experienced a period of renaissance after relieving itself from Spanish oppression. Once liberated from the Spanish, the Dutch focused on establishing economic and naval supremacy in the English Channel, a move that would throw them into headlong conflict with their former Protestant ally. With an army of 10,000 and a navy of 190 ships, the Dutch East India Company was nearly as powerful as the militaries of its neighboring countries. They used this force to secure routes around the African coast, all the way to Indonesia, the Philippines, and Japan. By the turn of the 17th century, having already become a leading colonial power in the East Indies, the Netherlands turned an eye towards North America. Hired by the smaller Dutch West India Company in 1609, English profiteer Henry Hudson was given a commission by the Dutch to attempt to find a route to the East Indies by sailing through the Arctic Sea. But Hudson disregarded this order and instead took his chances on a middle route by venturing into a bay near Long Island and ascending a long river northward. This attempt to find a shortcut failed, but the Hudson River and Bay planted a Dutch claim along this tract and would become known as New Netherland. Less than 15 years after Hudson's discovery, the Dutch West India Company created permanent settlements in New Amsterdam to supplement their successful sugar trade in the Caribbean with the money that could be made harvesting beaver pelts in the American wilderness. As a foothold to the new colony, Dutch traders bought Long Island from the Manhattan Indians for worthless trinkets. Today, Long Island is the home of the world's highest real estate prices. Like Virginia, New Netherland was a type of joint stock company that was created by stockholders for profitability. Early settlements in the Middle Colonies can be identified on this map. In the purple are Dutch, the yellow are English, the green along the St. Lawrence River are French, and the blue are Swedish settlements. Unlike the English, the Dutch had no enthusiasm for democracy or the social advancement of their laborers. Rather than implementing a headright system, the Dutch created patroonships, which mimicked European feudal estates, which gave promoters enormous tracts of land if they brought 50 or more people to the colony to work it. One patroonship in upstate New York was slightly larger than the state of Rhode Island. As the colonial capital and port city of New Netherland, New Amsterdam, later renamed New York by the English, attracted a diverse and affluent population. In this image, you can see a woman from a prosperous colonial New York family. Her elegant dress of silk and lace, coral jewelry, and Chinese fan and Turkish rug beneath her testify to the luxurious tastes and ties to international markets common amongst the Hudson River lords. Poor colonial management and conflict with the Manhattan Indians and the Puritans of Connecticut beset the Dutch colony almost immediately. The people of New Amsterdam attempted to wall off the city from invading forces. Today, the iconic Wall Street is so named because it marks the location of the city's former defensive barrier. Planting colonies is easier than maintaining them, as many empires discover too late. One such example were the Swedes. Swedish Lutheran king Gustavus Adolphus had sanctioned his own small colony along the Delaware River, which today is the boundary between Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Planting colonies is easier than maintaining them, as many empires discover too late. One such example were the Swedes. Swedish Lutheran king Gustavus Adolphus had sanctioned his own small colony along the Delaware River, which today is the boundary between Pennsylvania and New Jersey. The people of New Sweden misguidedly began settling in land claimed by the Dutch. When the governor of New Netherland, Peter Stuyvesant, led a military campaign in 1655 against his neighbors to the south, the ill-prepared and underfunded Swedish colony collapsed and was absorbed by New Netherland. Though New Sweden was gone, almost before it even existed, Swedish culture flourished along the Delaware. The ascendancy of Charles II to the English throne would test the Dutch colony's resolution to maintain colonies in North America. For more than a decade, the English and Dutch Navy periodically wrestled for supremacy on the English Channel. Dutch plantations in the Caribbean had also challenged English commerce in the West Indies. With Charles in charge, the English would sail 4 large ships carrying 450 men off the coast of New Amsterdam to lay claim to New Netherland. Outmanned and outgunned, Governor Stuyvesant surrendered the city without firing a shot. The colony and port city were renamed New York in honor of the Duke of York, the king's brother, to whom Charles had granted title over the territory. By removing the Dutch, the English banner now waved triumphantly over a solid stretch of territory from Maine to the Carolinas. Even once the Dutch government had been removed, New York retained its aristocratic flair. The families of founding fathers like the Livingstons and Delanceys would wield disproportionate political and economic power even beyond the American Revolution. At least immediately, this autocratic environment discouraged many European immigrants from coming to New York. Today, you can see and hear the imprint of Dutch culture on the names and architecture of New York. Places like Brooklyn, Harlem, and Hell's Gate were all named by the Dutch. Other Dutch social customs like painting Easter eggs, Santa Claus, waffles, sauerkraut, bowling, sleighing, skating, and golf are still with us too. The future metropolis, already a bustling port, is shown here as it was in the year that the English took over New Netherland and renamed it New York.